Okay, it says we are live. For those watching the recording, hang out for a minute. We got to post the link in the Telegram channel and just wait for Zoom and YouTube to sync up and tell us for sure that we are actually live. All right, that's coming through. Looks like I got the link. Post that in Telegram channel. All right. Okay, so that's live. Welcome everybody to the Permissionless Software Foundation Technical Steering Committee meeting. Today is March 15th, 2023. I'm joined by these lovely gentlemen. I am Chris Troutner. I maintain fullstack.cash. I founded the Permissionless Software Foundation, and I head up these technical steering meetings every 2 weeks. Let's go ahead and do a round of introductions. Aaron Shoemaker, why don't you start us off?
My name is Aaron Shoemaker, and I've been working with the PSF for like 2 years now, and doing stuff on the metaverse and 3D side. And currently, I'm working on building a scheduling application. So I'm diving into React and some Neo4j.
Nice. Go ahead, Stoyan.
My name is Stoyan Zhekov, and from time to time, I'm just helping with the JavaScript libraries.
And occasionally blowing our minds with little gems of knowledge.
Yeah. Some days.
Go ahead, Aaron Sunman.
Greetings all, Aaron Sunman here. Big fan of permissionless development, permissionless software usage, and also a big user of the PSF software stack. I really enjoy how easy it is to integrate into systems like I'm working on ownrare.art, things like that, and glad to be a part of the program here.
Nice. So a couple things to help us collectively remember when we get into the roundtable, Aaron. I want to hear more about OwnRare and how the jungle stuff migration has been rolling out. And I know some of the users have experienced some issues, and it's been good. So I want to hear just an update on that. And then also we were talking offline about what were we talking offline about? Oh, about Thorchain.
Thorchain stable coin
and flat coins. No.
Yeah, and Flatcoin. So we got a very short agenda today of technical updates, and then we're going to go into the roundtable. For those who are watching this recording later and don't know what's happening at this moment in history, USDC depegged over the weekend. That was a big deal. So I thought this would be a good time for us to put our collective brains together and discuss stablecoins and pros and cons and the technology behind it. So yeah, I think that's kind of the theme for today. But with that, I'm going to share my screen and get us to the agenda. So as always, our agendas are on GitHub under the Permissionless Software Foundation group in a repository called TSC for Technical Steering Committee. They're filed as GitHub issues. This is today's, which is issue number 50. The scope of the meetings, if anybody wants to watch older recordings, there's a link to our YouTube channel here and our Telegram channel where you can join the conversation. The scope of these meetings revolve around these different projects: the cache stack, which is the core infrastructure, the pay-to-write database, which is allows us to have an IPFS cluster, as well as it's a decentralized censorship-resistant database. The BCH DEX, which allows trading of SLP tokens on 3 different blockchains. And we have a link to our governance documents, which are also open source and anybody can contribute to. And the latest project that I've been heading up is this BCH coin join, which was funded through a Flipstarter by the Bitcoin Cash community. I've got an update on that. And actually, let's dive into that because that's in the agenda. First, let me give some governance updates. So a workflow outline has been developed for the next steps of updating the pay-to-write database. So just to recap on where we're at with that, when I first developed the pay-to-write database, it was basically solely under my control, like most of these projects start out as. and it quickly has been finding commercial use, particularly as a pinning cluster on the IPFS network. That's an extra piece of software that runs on top of it, and it's being used fairly heavily by a couple companies now. And what we need is a way to update the cost of writing to the database in a distributed way, so there's no central point of failure. So what we did, we created the Minting Council, the PSF Minting Council. I think everybody here is on that Minting Council. It's a multi-sig
Don't
wallet.
tell anybody.
Well, we use the NFTs as homing beacons, and then we can collectively update, send a transaction through the multi-sig to the Bitcoin Cash blockchain to update the distributed system. So this is a very novel, I mean, it's highly technical, but it's a very novel and very powerful idea. And so we're on the last step of that, where we have this PS 009 specification, which describes how mechanically how everything works. So we're on the last stage of that. I'm going to be putting, I have a link here to like an outline of how it's going to be implemented in the pay to write database, so that it can look at the Bitcoin Cash blockchain and figure out through these consensus rules what price to charge for a write. And then because it's a consensus rule, every instance of the pay to write database out there is going to do the same thing and reach consensus on that. And so for anybody who's interested in that, the outline's there. That's the latest step. What I'm probably going to do is develop an NPM library. This is kind of the pattern I've been doing for a lot of these specifications, where the spec captures, how everything's supposed to be, and then I implement the spec in a standalone JavaScript library, so that anybody who wants to leverage that technology or that specification in their project can just grab the library. And I suspect that that's what's going to happen here, that because this idea is so generalized and so powerful of using NFT tokens as homing beacons to create a multi-sig wallet for updating a distributed system. That's a pretty general thing, and it's a solution to a generalized problem. So I suspect that we'll see people, if we do good and do well in implementing this, I suspect we'll see other projects adapt to it. And as always, guys, feel free to interrupt me with questions and comments. Otherwise, I'll just keep going down the list. I also in the governance updates, I created a very short, like 2-minute YouTube video walking through step by step how to sign a message with our web wallet and register yourself with our Telegram channel bot so that you can speak in our general channel. I've seen a lot of people struggle with it. Some people get it right away, and other people just struggle and never get it. And I feel really bad for those people. So that's why I created this video. It's attached to the pinned message in our Telegram channel. And it's also in that sort of help dialogue that the bot will give you when you ask it for help. So hopefully that video will help more people succeed in being able to actually participate in our Telegram channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's great. Thanks for doing that.
Thanks. Yeah. Just trying to be more inclusive and get people over that hurdle. What I really like about our process is that it forces people to use our web wallet. So we don't we don't really get any faker. Like I understand just understanding what a signed message is and how to get it and submit it. Like that's a technical hurdle that I'm sure people struggle with. But at the same time, it's like, well, if you're not going to make at least a little effort to use our web wallet once, when it doesn't cost you anything, like, I don't know if your contribution to our discussion channel is very valuable. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, there's an interesting side to this too, is the general concept of being able to sign a message is a larger concept of being able to prove that you own a key and only you own that key, and to be able to, that like even my daughter for the first time in she's a junior in college and in computer science, and they finally talked about this idea of public key encryption. And so this is an implementation that is really simple, inexpensive. In fact, it's actually free.
It's free,
but it proves this one thing, which is like only you could sign that thing, and that proves that you own that, right? Those are just really important things. We don't talk about that much here. It's just you're using it, and it seems like, oh, it's a dumb step, but it's really important long term for all of this to work.
That's crazy that not until she was in her junior year
do they even talk about it.
Wow.
The nice thing about the professor, what she said was, you do not understand the importance of public key encryption. I cannot, even if I spent the whole hour talking about it, you wouldn't believe how important this is. So at least the professor was saying, you got to try and understand this more, more than just, okay, get what a JSON file is, right? That's not going to change the world. This will probably, data structures change the world in some ways, but public key encryption actually changes a huge number of from the perspective of sovereign individual existence, right? That's what I'm talking.
Yeah, it sounds like the professor's coming from the same point of view that I am, where it's like the understand, like, even if you don't understand any of the math, if you just know like how to drive the car, if you just know how to go to a web wallet and sign a message, it's like 2 clicks. Like, just knowing that you've done that, it's such a fundamental, basic first step in the cryptocurrency world that like literally everybody should know how to do that. It's so important and so basic. And so that's why that's why it's like, it's definitely enough to confuse the spam bots. And that's another point of it.
and it gets people at first time actually doing something like that, actually using it and seeing like something like that come across. So I appreciate the fact that you did it for more than just stopping spam.
That's good feedback, guys. Thanks. So just an update on the collaborative CoinJoin project that I've been working on. I am really close to being able to have the prototype that broadcasts a CoinJoin transaction. So where I'm at now is I'm using 2 peers because that's the minimum and that's the easiest thing to develop on. But they can find one another over the IPFS network using these pub sub channels. One of them initiates a CoinJoin collaboration, and that's in the specification on how that all works. But one of them initiates it. The other one responds to it by submitting their UTXOs that they want added to the CoinJoin transaction. A CoinJoin transaction is generated, and an unsigned transaction, and passed to the members, which right now there's only 2, and they partially sign the transaction with their inputs. This prevents, when you sign it, it prevents anybody else from being able to manipulate those inputs. And then, so the final step is and then it passes the unsigned transaction back to the initiator. And so I'm on that final step where the initiator combines all the partially signed transactions into one completely signed transaction and then broadcasts it. So I'm right there on that final step, and then I'll have an update. I've got this is all command line stuff, but there is a Electron desktop app, and it compiles for all the major operating systems. However, that won't reflect any of this for a while. I've got to get the process on the command line working reliably, and then I can go back. But what I have proven with the desktop app is that all the libraries that are needed to make this happen are compiled into a desktop app. So I know that once I get the protocol completed, I know that I will be able to put it into a desktop app, and then it'll have a nice graphical user interface for people to use. So been working hard on it, and I'm pretty excited to see it come out. And also as sort of a next step for this project, right now I'm just focusing on Bitcoin Cash, but as a next step for this, it'll be fairly simple to adapt it for SLP tokens. And then once the May upgrade happens and a few months go by for improved developer tooling, I don't think it'll be very difficult to get this to work with cash tokens as well. And that's one thing the space has really been lacking, is a CoinJoin for tokens. No chain does that. I mean, Ethereum has like Tornado Cash, and we all know how that went. but that's a very different thing than a coin join. I still have never seen a UTXO chain with tokens implement a coin join. It's technically possible on Avalanche, and I've talked to some of the Avalanche people about that. There's been a little bit of research in that area, but they still don't have anything like that.
Do they have tokens on the X chain?
They do, yeah. In fact, if you create an NFT on Avalanche, it's going to be on the X chain. I mean, you can create C chain tokens too. And one of the things I need to check, I'm pretty sure about this. I'd say I'm 90% confident, because they did a deal recently with Shopify, and where you can create an NFT on Avalanche and then sell them through Shopify. And I'm pretty sure that uses the X chain NFTs. I'm pretty sure that's not a C chain NFT.
Gotcha.
So for everybody, the C chain is the EVM. It's like Ethereum. The X chain is like Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. It's UTXO based.
Chris, why this thing need to be put in the wallet itself? Like now you're talking about the Electron application, and Jerry is asking, can the mobile clients do also this? Was it how to see? It makes sense this to be on some like API, like on some server maybe. Like before, it was this GS Plus servers which was doing all the mixing stuff. So
Oh, well, GS Plus was doing SLP token validation. Wasn't doing any mixing.
But maybe mistaken. But my point is, should this coin join be just like on some server and accessing by API, or I don't know, why to put it on the client side?
Well, I'm glad you asked this, because this is a little bit of nuance I'd love to get into. So this is supposed to be a complement to Cash Fusion. So we all know what Cash Fusion is. For anybody watching this who doesn't know what Cash Fusion is, it's the sort of de facto way you get privacy in Bitcoin Cash right now. It's not the only way to do coin join, but it's definitely the most like sort of industrial, battle tested. It's what everybody uses these days. And some of the shortcomings with Cash Fusion is that it uses a single coordination server. So if that server is ever taken down or attacked, nobody gets to do coin join anymore until it's brought back up or someone starts a new server. So that's a point of failure. And because everybody has to talk to this one server in the world, there's a lot of people in low latency places, which is the places where they need it the most, like Venezuela and China. They can't access it because the latency is too high. They never get a transaction to go through.
I never thought about that. That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's a shortcoming. And also it doesn't do tokens. And so one of the things, and everybody, like all the major wallet creators like Bitcoin.com, Zapit, Paytaka, they would love to get this coin join tech into their wallets, but it's simply too complex. And so what I'm trying to do is make this modular. So what's actually happening here, I haven't covered this, but now I will because you asked that question. Inside the desktop app, there's actually a Node.js REST API server, and that's what spins up the IPFS node. And then there's the graphical user interface, which is basically just like a web page, and it's making calls to that REST API server. And when you're talking about the command line wallet, it's the same thing. You're running this REST API server, which is actually doing the coin join coordination and finding the other peers on the network. And you're running it locally, although somebody can run it externally too. And then the command line wallet is basically simulating what the web browser UI would be doing by just making calls to the API. And the reason I designed it this way is that the wallet, the client, is the one that actually knows the mnemonic and is doing the signing. The API, which is finding the other peers on the network and coordinating the coin join transaction, all it knows about is the UTXOs. It doesn't know your mnemonic and it doesn't know your private key. So it's just passing transactions back to the client to have them sign it, and then back and forth. So by doing it this way, people who create a web wallet like Paytaka or Zapit, they can have a lightweight client that holds the mnemonic, controls the private keys, does the actual signing. But this REST API, which can be external, it could be a web service. It doesn't need to be on the actual phone device. that's doing the actual finding peers and negotiating, like joining a coin join, and then doing all the transaction manipulation that doesn't involve the actual signing. So really trying to decouple those two parts to make it scalable, but also modular, so that different wallets can run these light clients and then use that web tech to sort of push all this heavy, because the IPFS is pretty heavy. Running an IPFS node takes around somewhere between 100 and 300 kilobits per second. And that's a lot of data. You wouldn't want that running on a cell phone. That would drain your battery and kill your data plan very quickly. So that's the idea, or that's how it's being architected, and it's significantly different. And because it's using IPFS pub sub channels, there's no central server. Everything's ad hoc. People are just finding one another on the internet, so there's no central point of failure.
That seems to answer Jerry's question.
Mhm.
I can
Being able
testify
to
to
be
that.
mobile.
Yeah, but this just proved my point that it's not need to be part of the wallet, but for example, can be part of this consumer that we have
Mhm.
for the decentralized network. It can be part of the consumer, so the wallet just need to access the consumer and get a coin join. So mixed his like UTXOs.
Yeah, it basically works that way. I mean, it's based on all the consumer technology. Like the consumer, the BCH consumer is our Web3 stack is going over IPFS, and so all of this works the exact same way.
I can testify to how much battery it eats up and how hot your phone gets running an IPFS node on it. So,
Yeah. What I did find out through all this is a really good way to spin up a Go IPFS node from within a Node.js JavaScript application without having to run like an external.
really?
Yeah. You can actually, I know, it's not very intuitive, and I this is exactly what I needed to do in order to be able to do this desktop application, because it has to have an IPFS node, and there's no way in hell I'm going to touch the JS implementation anymore. And so this is like the Protocol Labs recommended way of doing it is there's an npm library that actually spins up a Go IPFS node within the context of the JavaScript app.
What's that called?
Well, I believe the npm library is called Go-IPFS. But I can meet up with you offline. Let me just see if I'm right about that.
I got it.
Yeah, so that's the actual library, but it's pretty crazy how like I would have never been able to stand this up on my own if I hadn't had their code to copy. Because it's pretty intense. It's pretty crazy. All the little hackery things you have to do in order to make it work. But it does work, and it is reliable once you get it.
Very cool. I'll put that on the back burner.
So something we've talked about in the past, I've kind of been mulling over this last month, is making minimal SLP wallet use our Web3 stack by default. Right now it uses the Web2, and the intent there was that like REST APIs are the de facto way that everything gets done on the internet these days. And so a new developer coming to the space trying to use this tool is like gonna be thinking that way. And so I wanted to cater to that, but API.fullstack.cache, the service I run, it's just a pain in the ass to operate. It's never paid for itself. And the rate limits are just a real pain in the ass. And you don't have this issue with the Web3 stack. And it just has to do with the costs of running Web2 versus a Web3. It's much less expensive to run Web3.
Right.
And so I wouldn't do this for probably at least 6 months, but I'm thinking about sunsetting API.fullstack.cache and just making minimal SLP wallet, just use our Web3 stack out of the box without any extra configuration by default. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Does that seem appropriate?
Boy, to me, it does. It feels like, I mean, that's the way I've kind of done it anyway. I was in the beginning using the API fullstack.cache. And then once once I started using consumer API, I'm building behind it the ability to have task queues. So I'm not worried about necessarily being super fast for everything, but then also the ability to stand up my own and help out the consumer API, right? I mean, I actually feel like every one of us for a very low price can actually help this infrastructure build out.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not talking about removing the ability of it to work with Web 2. So for you, like you, Aaron Sunman, who run your own internal server, you're going to want to leverage the Web 2 because it's going to be very like, why would you want to use the IPFS network if you're just local within your own LAN? That doesn't make any sense. So it'll still be able to. So I'm just talking about switching the defaults rather than being Web 2 by default and Web 3 optional. It'd be Web 3 by default and Web 2 optional.
Yeah, it's because Aaron still didn't allow me to access my API, so it's better to be consumer API.
I'll go in and see what's going on with the servers because they should be working. Last time I checked, they were working. So I'll go check.
It was a joke.
So
Message me, Stoyan. Hit me up if they're not working.
I keep trying to find time to do that myself, like to log in. I kick the tires, but life keeps getting in the way. So I will message you, Aaron, if I have a problem.
No, I'm complaining, but in fact, I was also very busy. So yeah, I tried today, so that's why
You tried today? Did it work? It didn't work today?
Yeah, but no, it's not. I'm not in a hurry. I was just also busy too. So yeah, no problems.
Right. Well, this is something you might be interested in, Stoyan. When I was in Mexico, I spent some time refactoring wallet.fullstack.cache to get rid of the class components and replace them with functional components. And so that's been done and the reason I did this is because I'm using that wallet as a template for things like local trade list and just more and more it's being used as a template, and more those class components are coming back to haunt me, like why isn't this thing updating, it's because it's a class component and it has state.
So the most problem, I don't have problem with code so much, is it class on function, but with the state, like these class components, they can hold a state, but function they cannot. So that's why I'm using this pool something. So what you set up on for the state management?
I'm not using an external tool. What I'm doing is this is the pattern I'm following is that when I create a component and it's a functional component, and I use the use state function when I need to add some state, and then all of the state for that component gets put into one single object, and then I pass that object around. If I need to pass that up to the parent or pass it down to children components, I'm just passing one object around that has the whole state and the functions for updating the state. So by doing it that way, I can I've just found that to be really convenient. I haven't gotten to the point where I felt like I needed something like Redux or some sort of state management library, because the state's fairly light and simple. But anyways, that's the pattern I've been approaching it with. And once I sort of figured out that trick of like, I can take all the state and all the functions for updating the state and put them into a single object and then pass that object around as a prop, that made everything click for me, because all of a sudden it didn't seem like what I didn't like about functional components is they seemed like they were really messy. Like there was just so many variables flying around, and I liked the class component, how you do, the set state command to update anything in the state. And so once I figured out like, I can just put everything into an object and pass it around, that sort of got me over that mental hurdle.
Use context is a good thing for that too. I don't know if you've used that hook yet.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten very deep. I'm mostly just using use state and use effect. But yeah, I need to start to branch out and use more of these hooks.
Use context is not so. I tried it, but it's a little pain. Like it's just hiding this passing behind some like global context stuff. But I think it's now they have a better tools, like this pool stuff was one of, and I think they have another one now for the better like state management. I forgot the name.
Use reducer probably. And I know that's another one you
Um,
can use.
Yeah, I can find it later. We can not lose time, but yeah, if you manage to pass it just like an object, it can be used by use context, like Aaron proposed, because yeah, you just create it in one time. But it was a little difficult because this use stuff, it can be used only in hooks
Mhm.
or something like they have some limitation. I forgot exactly.
It'll
But
re-render. And so like, if you
Yeah.
have anything that's not in state, you can lose it. So like, when you're using use context, anything that's dependent on use context will re-render every time the state updates.
yeah, and you cannot use use stuff inside your functions. If you have util some functions, just usual one, you cannot use use something there inside hooks. You cannot use hooks there. So
Yeah. Well, you guys at this point, I am the novice when it comes to React. So if you guys have time and inclination to like look at the code and tell me what I'm doing wrong, like I'm very receptive to that.
okay,
I'll
so
take a look, but I'm still a newbie in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all learning. That's what's great. I love it when other people in this group like tell me what I'm doing wrong. Okay, well, just one quick update on local trade list. I just wanted to cover this. This is kind of a hobby project for me. And thank you, Aaron Sunman, for kicking the tires on that and giving me a little feedback. It's still an extremely rough prototype. Like I just wanted to it's just to the point where I can sort of show the basic ideas behind it. It's not for normal people to use. It's not even for highly technical people to use. It's so fragile right now. But the very high level like goal of this site is to help neighbors trade with neighbors. And so the idea is to like, if I have a bumper crop of potatoes, I could drop a pin and just be like, yeah, I got potatoes for $4 a pound or whatever reasonable price is. And so here's an example. So I just got it up on a website so I could show it off to you guys and other people. And so it's basically I think there's like three main functionalities here. It comes up as a map of the US and then it populates these pins, and each pin represents a store, and that store is represented on the blockchain as an SLP group token. So because it's a group token, it can issue NFTs, and this app makes no opinion on what those NFTs are or could be. They could be receipts, they could be products, they could be whatever. Doesn't matter to this application. And because they're a group token, they have this SLP mutable data. So here's a little, just one of these little roadside stands that are super common in Mexico that I took a picture of, and created kind of a profile page for it. So if you click on this profile page, it'll open a new tab and bring up this token with the mutable data. So this would be the token icon that is the picture of the store, and then this is where products would go, but right now I only have that one picture, and they can put a name and a description and a price. And if we scroll down, as well as the website for more info, this could be like a Google Maps listing or a full-blown website. But if you scroll down, you can see the actual token metadata, the immutable data and the mutable data. And so you can see the products here are, they're just information in the mutable data. And so I don't think, I don't have so the menu item says create store, because for this wallet that I have loaded right now, it does not have a store token. If I was to click on this, I can create a store by dropping a name, description, a link, an icon for the store, drop a pin in here on the map to get some coordinates, and then hit create token and create token. And once the token's created, this create store menu item will change to edit token, and then you'll be able to edit the mutable data, add and remove products. And that's about as far as I've gotten it right now. And Aaron Sunman helped me discover a bug where sometimes this will create the token and then but it won't be able to find the mutable data for it that it just created for some reason. So I need to add the ability I think what I'll do is, because what happens is the minting baton for this group token, because in order to make NFTs, you have to create more group tokens with the minting baton. That gets stored in there's the 0 index for an HD wallet, and then the next address is the 1 index and the 2 index. So it stores the minting baton in the 1 index of the HD wallet. And so what this does is when the wallet loads, there's the mnemonic that controls the HD wallet, and that's stored in the browser's local storage. It looks at that 1 index and looks to see if there's a group minting baton there. And if it is, that's what changes that menu item from create store to edit store. And and so what I need to do is when it does that, if it finds the minting baton, pulls up the token data, and if there's no mutable data associated with it, I'll have it retry a few times because there's the call to get the mutable data from the server. You can add a flag to it to ask it to refresh the mutable data, and so that's what I need to do. If I had that in place, then it would automatically ask the server to try again, to try to download the mutable data again, and update the token data, and then it would come back successfully and appear properly. And so that's the bug. That's the solution to the bug you discovered, Aaron.
So there's go ahead.
There was interesting question in some chat, and I couldn't figure it. Why, in fact, the baton was created in first place, the minting baton?
Oh,
what was the purpose of all this stuff? Like you was in these historical times.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fairly arbitrary decision by James Kramer. I mean, when he was first creating the original SLP1 spec, he was consulting with several other knowledgeable people in the space. And that's where the original idea of the minting baton came from. This was before the NFTs. The NFT was he went off in the left field on his own and came up with the NFT spec. But for fungible tokens, it's basically, it solved the problem of how do you bring new fungible tokens into existence? And what if the person with the responsibility for doing that needs to change addresses? And so it was sort of an elegant thing, is like, oh, we can pass the baton which is a UTXO, which is a colored UTXO. We can pass it from one address to another, but whoever has the baton is the one with the power to bring new tokens into creation.
And if the baton doesn't exist, now you know that it's limited, right? And I think there's another.
Yeah,
it's reasonable. But for example, for the we are talking now, this shop will be like a group token. You need to create like children, so you need to burn but not like one token in order to create the child token. This thing is a little fuzzy for me still.
Well, now. Yeah, that was the so he created these fungible tokens, and now everybody wanted him to create NFTs. Mm-hmm. And this is where things start, because now he had less funding, more pressure, less help. And so he took this idea of fungible tokens and kind of morphed it into a way to create NFT. At first, the way to create an NFT was simply to create a fungible token of quantity 1, no minting baton, and decimal 0.
Sense. Yeah.
And that makes sense. A lot of people like that, but what that lacked was any sort of connection from one NFT to another. And in a lot of cases you need that, say a concert ticket. You need, an NFT represents the seat that's in row B, seat 4, but you need some sort of parent reference that these are all concert tickets, all these NFTs represent concert tickets. But that was kind of the problem he was trying to solve with that NFT spec. And that's what you get with this group. And so I'm kind of leveraging that in that like fungible, because group tokens are fungible tokens. The mutable data for them, there's only one mutable data for all the group tokens that you can create. So all the group tokens that you create will reference the same mutable data. You only need to update it once. It updates it for all the tokens. And that's not true for NFTs. Each NFT has its own unique mutable data. And so that's when you start thinking about it from the sense of mutable data, do I need to just if I have 1,000 tokens, if they're fungible, I only need to make one update. if I have 1,000 NFTs, I need to make 1,000 updates.
Right. That's
yeah, so that it kind of starts to make sense when you look at it from that perspective, I think.
So I was thinking about the SSP a lot and how much I appreciate the fact that you're building this. One of the things that came up recently, I was listening to a podcast, What is Money, with Robert Breedlove and George Gammon. I don't know anything about George Gammon.
I watched that too. That was a great episode.
It really hit home about the CDBC thing and how having people be sovereign individuals and allow them to be able to trade locally. The problem with coincidence of wants is you'd have to discover it. So you have to create something that's completely decentralized and yet has the ability to be able to be found from anyone, anywhere, right? Especially local people, even just local, right? But even that works globally as well. So what you're building is this idea of something that George has put together, and I think really soundly in that particular podcast, about how important this actually is.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to see all of these thought leaders converge on the same idea. So even George Gammon, who is not the first person I'd pick to start talking about trading locally. I mean, he's like a big money guy. Like
he's
and
macro guy.
And he's saying like you need to start trading with your neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was interesting side of it too. And this is, I mean, for us and anyone listening, the idea of thinking out in the future, and what is your red line?
Right.
When do you say, you know what, I need to take action? But if you wait to decide what that red line is, for example, if CDBCs come along and you cannot use it to buy from your friend, or you can't, you might be restricted, think about what those red lines are and say, okay, if this is coming closer and closer, I need to take action at this point. I don't know what that action is. I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that are coming, and we don't often, when you get too close to it, you go like, this is just fine. This is just fine. The next thing is just fine. What we need to be able to say is make a plan for yourself and figure out what that is. And then maybe start working toward the SSP, the simple store protocol, and think about how do you trade with your neighbors? This is what George said in that interview. I'm already killing the intrigue on what that said.
I would love to go down that rabbit hole with you, but I mean, that little shop that I showed in the screenshot there of local trades list, like that was the thing that blew me away in Mexico, is like you have a whole spectrum of potential businesses. You've got like garage sales, and then you've got permanent garage sales, and then you've got people who just had an extra room and they start selling random shit out of their living room. And then you've got like a store that's like, I don't know if they're actually registered, but they're there and they're, they have a presence. And then you got like legit store. Like, that's what I mean by like the spectrum in Mexico. Like, you don't see that in the US. Like There's either a store or not a store. Like, there's not a spectrum in the US. I've never seen that anywhere I go. There's like garage sales, and then there's like stores that are registered and have employees, and there's like nothing in between. But in Mexico, I saw the whole spectrum. And I just thought that was so much more resilient, and to bring it back to this red line and some of the things we've talked about with like local currencies and trying to focus on community and trade within a community, both just out of a sense of your own health, but then also as a defense mechanism for whatever ends up coming in the future from the World Economic Forum and overreaching government. So it's important. I mean, all of this information is important, and that's what I hope Local Trade List will become, is a resource for people to find one another, to do trades.
And the beautiful part about it too is people can build their own UI, right? It's all public content on the blockchain. They want to build their own. The Local Trade List is just one UI that can be built on, and everyone else can build their own, plus you're open source and they can split and continue building.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You got the data's on the blockchain. And so if somebody wants to take that raw data and represent it differently, or set different thresholds
for
moderation,
mobile app that shows what's around, boom, you click the button, it just shows you the local 4 that does donuts, right? And boom, you got, that's all available.
No permission needed. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the end of the agenda. And what I was hoping we could get into is stable coins. And just to kick that discussion off, because I'm really interested to see what you guys want to add to this conversation, but let's kick it off by just looking at a list of stable coins by market cap, which is, if you didn't actually look at the numbers, you might think that USDC was the largest stable coin by market cap, but it's not. It's actually over 50% smaller than Tether. And as much as people love to hate on Tether, it is a economic powerhouse in Asia, Southeast Asia. If anybody who wants to hate on Tether, doubt the power of Tether, you really need to go talk to someone in Southeast Asia about how they do business, particularly all those island countries. Like Tether is how business gets done, because there is no reliable banking service out there.
Wow.
And yet,
I didn't realize that.
I think that's where a lot of, and it's as an American, you would never hear about that. Why would you? But it's huge out there. And then it's also Tether on Tron is like the second coming, in Turkey and Libya, where they're having hyperinflation. That's how everybody's getting out of the government's fiat is by escaping to Tron and using Tether dollars on Tron. They don't understand the tech, and they don't know why Tron's not the best thing to use, but they know that it works, and that's all they care about.
Inexpensive fees too.
Yeah.
I think we all know that the Luna is a dirty word, but they was doing a lot of stuff there, having stable coins for not only for USD. They was for the local stuff. They have the Japanese stable coin. This one was, I think, very, very cool idea, because why we need to peg everything to the United States dollars if you
Absolutely.
For example, in Japan.
I'm always surprised that there's not more, right? I mean, it feels like that's an important thing to have, stable coins based on the different local currencies.
Well, on Avalanche, they came up with a stable coin that was pegged to the Turkish lira, but that was right before the Turkish lira just went into the toilet.
So not stable.
Yeah. I mean, I think it held the peg though, but
maybe
that
we
wasn't
need
very
to
hard.
peg a stable coin to an hour of digging a ditch or something like that. Some actual redeemable.
But how to see? It's
type
very,
thing.
very misleading word, stable. It's not stable. It's just like a one-to-one with some fiat.
Well,
it's
we
not
think that
one-to-one sometimes.
we think that fiat is stable. I mean, we've grown up thinking the dollar is stable, but it's not. None of it's stable,
So,
well, let me throw out some alternative stablecoin tech that I'm curious. Let me know if you guys were aware that this exists, and then if I fail to cover something that you know about, let me know about it. So I think you guys all know about DAI, which is the original over collateralized stable coin. And that used to be my go-to, but 40% of their collateral is from USDC. So DAI lost their peg when USD lost their peg this weekend too. So that's becoming, I'm starting to move away from DAI. But the two stable coins and then just to touch on some of these alternative stable coins that are not pegged to the US dollar, there's RAI, RAI, which is based on DAI, but it's not pegged to the US dollar. And because it's not pegged to anything. It's designed to be, it floats, but it's stable within the range it floats in. It's a very hard thing to wrap your head around. I don't fully understand it, but this guy I met at BCH22 is all about it. Marius, shout out if you're listening. But he really had a lot of respect for it. It's a very interesting idea. I'd love, if you guys want to check into it, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I think I understand it, but relative to the US dollar, it's been consistently losing value. So that's kind of why I haven't really gotten into it. Another one is Nuon, which is not pegged to the US dollar, but pegged to US inflation. And this was founded by Stefan Rust, who used to be the CEO of Bitcoin.com when I was there. He got laid off the same time I did, and he went on to found Trueflation, which won a $100,000 grant from Balaji for developing a decentralized inflation index. So they recreate essentially the CPI of the US, but using all independent data, and then they broadcast the price feed for it on Chainlink. So they've created a decentralized price oracle for U.S. inflation that's independently calculated from the U.S. government. And so like last year when the government was saying, the official inflation rate was like 8% or 7%, Trueflation was calculating it out at 12%. So now this inflation index is going on to create the flat coin Nuon. So it's an over collateralized stable coin, but it's not pegged to the US dollar, it's pegged to US inflation. So as the dollar goes down, the price of the Nuon goes up. So that's an interesting idea. They're not yet on mainnet as far as I know. It's only a test net and they're on their own blockchain.
I'm very disappointed with them.
Because,
the idea is great. I mean, and they have this Trueflation, they have API, like Oracle you mentioned, everything. And I was playing a lot with Nuon on when they was on the testnet. It was on some of this Ethereum Goerli or something. So it was very, very nice. But now I'm so disappointed with their solution. They are now on mainnet, but on Arbitrum or something, I don't know when they decided.
Well, they have their own blockchain called Lugana, I think.
No. There was Laguna, not Lugana, Laguna Labs. They renamed their Discord now to Nuon. So, and their mainnet, they don't have like testnet anymore. I lost all of my Goerli Ethereum stuff. They just have now the mainnet, but it's on this Arbitrum, and the only collateral is USDC. There is no more collateral with Ethereum or something else.
That's stupid.
What are you doing, guys? I can show you now. I just visited them today, even to be sure, but it's
that sucks. I'm sorry. That's disappointing to hear.
Yeah. Idea was great, but now current implementation is, I will not mention bad words, but it's very disappointing.
That is disappointing. Yeah, well, thank you for that update. I was not aware of that. I need to verify that for myself. But there's two stable coins that I'm really in favor of, and I've been giving them a hard look this last year. The first one is Liquidity on Ethereum, LUSD. Is the ticker stablecoin. And so it's like old school DAI. So DAI used to be only Ethereum, but then they went to multi-collateral. So now there's a range of assets you can use to stake and mint new DAI coins. And I don't think that was a good move. It was a good move for them financially. It wasn't a good move for people for like me. And so that's one reason why I like LUSD is because you can only stake Ethereum. And so you stake, say, $6,000 worth of Ethereum, and then you can mint $300 worth of LUSD. And so I like the simplicity of that. But what I also like about this project is they take censorship resistance extremely seriously. I have no idea where the actual company's based or who the founders are. They keep that very, I've tried to find that out, and I haven't been able to find that out. But also, you don't need to trust them because you're actually in an agreement with the smart contract, which exists and can't be changed. It's immutable. So that information doesn't really matter that much. And they also just focus on the back end. They just focus on the smart contract and any sort of maybe a little promotion and any sort of maintenance that's required. They leave the front end to third parties. So there's at least a dozen different front ends you can use to interact with the back end. And the reason I like that is because you guys probably remember a few months ago, I think it was the SEC either sued or investigated Uniswap. And the result of that was that Uniswap has no control over the smart contracts. Once they're launched and there's no taking it back. But they do have control over the front end. And this was the thing that was raging around Sam Bankman-Fried right before FTX blew up. That was the conversation that was happening in Washington was, well, we can't regulate the blockchain, but what we can regulate are these front end. So that's the current thinking in Washington, D.C. right now is regulating the web pages that interact with the blockchain. That's the current choke point that Washington, D.C. thinks that they can wrap their hands around. So I like that this Liquidity, LUSD, is forward thinking and has realized, like, yeah, that is a security vulnerability. We're going to let other people, we're going to have decentralized that part of it, where you can use a range of different front ends. And if one of them goes down, it's not a big deal. You just use a different one. And they all interact with the smart contract, and that's immutable, and the government can't do anything about that.
They're really back to this. Didn't they learn their lesson with Pirate Bay?
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm just saying, like, this is the
Right.
reality.
Like, oh, we're gonna go after the websites. Oh, we shut down the website. It's up again. We shut down the website. It's up again. You know,
I'm actually really happy that they're focused on it, because it is a stupid thing to focus on. So I
Whack-a-mole.
prefer that they focus on something
Yeah.
stupid than something that makes sense.
Right.
yeah.
Chris,
I-
it's
I
very
just- it's
limited
funny.
to like blockchains. They just have Ethereum, Optimism, Arbitrum.
Or they even,
So,
I didn't even know they were on Arbitrum. I think it's just Optimism.
it's
It is
very
very
recent.
limited.
Yeah. And for Ethereum, I don't think maybe somebody will use it, but it will be very expensive to use this for everyday like operations.
Yeah, and so that brings me to the second one that I'm excited about, because that is a serious limitation. YUSD, or Yeti.finance is the website. Their smart contract code is cloned from Liquidity, but they're on the Avalanche chain. So that makes the transaction fees like a fraction of what they'd be on Ethereum. And they made one improvement to the Liquidity smart contract, in that you can use a range of collaterals. And so I've actually successfully taken Bitcoin BTC and brought it across the Avalanche bridge as BTC.B, and then staked that to open a trove in Yeti and mint Yeti tokens. And so these are stable coin, they're over collateralized. Again, the company itself doesn't really matter that much, because you're interacting directly with the smart contract. And there have been 2 rounds of audits that have both verified that, like, the company has no way to freeze these tokens. They have no way to sort of mess with you once the loan is created. And so I'm pretty excited about that. And the fact that you can use different types of collateral to mint these things is pretty cool.
You told me before about this Steady USD or something.
Yeah,
They're pretty dead project, but it
They're
was
pretty
like
dead.
some liquidity clone, maybe.
yeah, they were a straight across Liquidity clone. And for some reason, like, that project died not because of any technical issue. It just didn't catch on. It just wasn't popular for some reason. And that's one thing I like about Yeti, is that they charge a 0.5% annualized interest on the loan. So that's such a small amount as to be negligible, but it funds their company to do promotion and improve their front end. They don't take the decentralized front end approach. You actually have to use a VPN if you're in the States to use it. I don't think they actively block anyone, but they could. They just say, if you're in America, you shouldn't use this. Yeah, so those are the stable coins that I'm pretty fond of. I've been playing around a lot with the Yeti because the transaction fees they're always they're usually like 25 cents or less anytime I do anything with it. Not only can I take out an over collateralized loan from using wrapped Ethereum, wrapped Bitcoin, and Avalanche, and any combination of them, I can use as collateral. And then I can take the YUSD, I can put it in the liquidity pool, or there's a stability pool, and that stability pool got completely drained. So everybody who staked their YUSD in the stability pool over the last weekend made a ton of money because of all the liquidations from USDC losing their peg.
Wow.
And then you can also take it and add it to the liquidity pool. They have like a YUSD USDC liquidity pool. I just did that today for the first time. I couldn't figure out how to do that for the longest time. I just finally figured it out today on how to actually successfully stake some of these tokens in a liquidity pool. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to figure out.
I was using Avalanche before when I was using also Luna. They had the same, I forgot the name, staking service, liquid staking service. What was the name? Something, but it was completely on Avalanche, and it was great. Like, I don't know, but it didn't survive all of the Luna stuff.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And the reason I never got into Luna is because I could never run a node. I tried to, when I first started looking into it, I was like, okay, what would it take to actually run a node? And I'm like, this is not possible on a normal desktop to run one of these nodes. So that was the first red flag to me. And thankfully I stopped there and didn't lose any money in that whole debacle. And that's why I like, stable coins on Avalanche. I can actually run a node on a normal desktop. So I know that infrastructure is working. And then I can use all these multiple collateral things to get to mint. And then if I go and buy the stable coins just because I want stable coins and I'm not interested in any of the other stuff, I know that each one of those stable coins is backed by the collateral, and that there's this whole mechanism to like maintain that stability, and it doesn't require any human intervention, and it also can't be fucked with by any government. So those are the things that really attract me to that particular stablecoin. But have you guys heard of any other stable coins or sort of just maybe even not stable coins, but just this sort of thinking of sovereign money and ways of
Well, I'm gonna bring in the discussion on Thor.
yeah.
Chain, because they actually support converting to many different stable coins from any L1, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Avalanche, Dogecoin, Cosmos, Litecoin, Polygon. So you can go directly from any of those into any of the stable coins that you mentioned. Well, not any of them, but USDT, USDC, and it doesn't matter if it's on Avalanche, on Ethereum, or on, I think they don't support Tron yet, but they do support a lot of other ones. So the ability to easily go back and forth without trusting a central party to any of these is really kind of amazing. There's USDC on Avalanche, there's USDT, there's BAT on Avalanche, there's lots of different things, and all of them are available with Thorchain to be able to swap between them. So I know that's what I think is really interesting. I have not really done a lot with stablecoins just because I don't really care that much. I don't have a need to, since I've got Cash App and I've got Venmo, and I'm not trying to pay people across the world necessarily. But the ability, knowing that it's capable without trusting a central authority to be able to go back and forth is really important. And I think that's one of the things that Thorchain has really brought to the fore.
Well, and their fees, that was a thing that really made me start using Thorchain more, was like their fees for going across chain are the lowest I've seen. So like, for example, Bitcoin VN is a non-KYC exchange. They charge 6%. Sideshift AI, they charge 2%. And Thorchain is usually 1% or lower from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. And we can also do staking on there. And so there's other capabilities, but I feel like no central authority, having to be able to go back and forth between layer one, so you don't have to convert anywhere because it uses Rune as the central converter. So you don't have to have liquidity pools. You don't have to have pairs. It's actually all to all at any point in time.
Yeah, but in this line of thinking, in fact the USDC is the best one because it's layer 0, so it's an omni chain. It's directly inside the contract. You can switch between the chains. So you don't need any other chain or any other bridge or something. The contract itself is allow this to switch.
Oh wow! So I like the way you consider it with an L0. So it's sort of above the L, the ones supporting it. Now you've got an L0 that allows for that transfer. I didn't realize that.
Well, Stoyan, educate us about this, because I've heard this too, but I don't know that I know that there's been recent developments for this type of conversion, but you're saying this is a feature of USDC's smart contract on like Ethereum or something where you can
not Ethereum. Can I show my screen?
Yeah, I think I have it turned on.
Well, this is interesting because in the US, like for like, crypto is not allowed to trade like for like, but this would allow for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can see this announcement: USDC now natively omni-chain. So it's like collaboration between this layer 0 and the circle. And what these layer 0 guys are doing, it's very interesting. In any of the blockchains that they're supporting, they're installing a very smart, very small contract, which allow the inter-blockchain messaging. You can send anything, what you want. You can send like text, like "Hello, Chris," and it can go between this. But if you go a little more clever, you can use one of their example contracts for NFT or for the tokens, and it have already built methods using these small bridges, small message hubs.
Mhm.
So it will transfer, like, for example, you can burn on one blockchain and send a message, okay, mint me something on the other blockchain. And it also is very interesting. You can pay the taxes. You can send, like, for example, one ETH even to this, in this message, it will get exactly how much you need on the other blockchain to mint, and it will return you the not needed stuff. It's very intelligent. And we tried this with NFT with Aaron one time, between the FTM, like, in Polygon
Phantom.
or something. So
Yeah,
it's pretty
Phantom and
much
Polygon.
on every EVM compatible blockchain. If they have these small message hubs, you can transfer tokens.
Very cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very nice, like, technology. You can take a look on their, like, site if you search for layer 0, and they have like ready, like, contracts templates, so you can just rewrite them. It's not even rewrite. You can what is this, like, use their contract and just have you coin, like, your coin in like seconds.
Yeah, just copy
Omni-chain
paste and
coin.
deploy.
Very, yeah. So it's interesting, and I think USDC makes some collaboration with them to make the USDC contract itself, like, using these message hubs. So in theory, it should be now like omni-chain. You can have USDC on any of the blockchains which layer 0 is supporting.
Yeah, do you know, if you use USDC this way, do they ask for any sort of KYC information?
I don't know. There's some bridge here which will be just like, I don't know. You can transfer between Avalanche and something.
Cool.
So,
yeah, that'd be fun to play with. I'll have to try.
Yeah.
I always get confused. I keep forgetting that layer 0 is like a company, and when people use the term, I'm thinking like L1, L2, like, oh, they're talking about something like that, not an actual company. So I always get confused.
It's more like, the name is pretty bad, because the proper term seems now everybody's using is omni-chain, which is it's not connected to any chain. You can
and then omni-chain was there was something about BTC back in the day that was called omni-chain. Like, it was a token. It was a token standard, I think. Because like the wormhole on Bitcoin Cash was based on Omni, and I think that was a short of omni-chain. So yeah, all these words, they get reused. It gets like, like they have eCash tokens on Lightning, and then there's eCash the blockchain, and that gets really confusing when you're having a conversation with somebody.
I like what they are doing. It's interesting. I'm not sure, will their like technology, like, see these endpoints and something. So it's very interesting technology. You can play around and see if you like it.
I definitely want to play with that bridge and see what the limitations and the transaction fees are for that.
You can try to create even like your omni-chain token on the Avalanche exchange. They have like Solidity examples for NFT and for fungible token, So it's like pretty nice little project for your hard hat like experiments to have like this omni-chain token on Avalanche.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I was thinking about sharing with you guys, it's been a little over an hour, so we might think about wrapping up. But if you guys are interested, I have a trading strategy that I'm using with one of these Yeti troves, and I have like the theoretical how it's supposed to work, and I was thinking about walking you guys through it. It's a spreadsheet. The math is pretty simple, but it just shows how I'm using one of these Yeti troves to actually profit from the volatility of Bitcoin. And I want to show it to you guys because, in case I'm getting something wrong, I'd rather have you guys point it out than like me learn it through actually losing money. But do you guys want me to show you real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can bring this up. Yeah, here we go. So there's a couple different simulations. There's these two 10% simulations, and then there's a 20% simulation. So this one that's marked B, it's every time the price of Bitcoin moves 10%, whether it's up or down, I rebalance the loan. And Stoyan dropped out.
Oh, he's
And
back.
okay, here he comes. So the idea here is that every time the price of Bitcoin moves 10%, I rebalance the loan. So the way these loans work is you have to, at least with Yeti, you have to buy $2,000 is like the minimum loan to open the loan. So what I like to be at 300% collateralization. The minimum is 110%. And so what I have been experimenting with is, so I bought $6,000 worth of assets between Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Avalanche, and I staked that in order to get a $2,000 loan of YUSD. So if you think about it like an asset liability, like a balance sheet, I've got $6,000 or in this example, I start with $3,000 of my assets, and I pull out $1,000 of YUSD. And so just for the sake of math, let's say that the price of Ethereum is $1,000. So this is the starting, this is where I start. So my loan collateralization is 300%. And the idea is to like maintain that 300%. That protects me. If there's a sudden drop in the crypto market, it has to drop like extremely, like more than 50% for me to get liquidated. And that's the idea. I just don't want to be liquidated. So the bigger that collateralization is, the less likely I am to get surprise liquidated. So because I took $1,000 loan, my liabilities are $1,000 and I have $1,000 cash in hand, essentially. So this is the start. So are you guys with me so far? Okay. So that's where I'm starting. So let's say Ethereum goes up by 10%. So the price of Ethereum is now $1,100. I still have the original 3 Ethereum in the loan. And this is also just for simplification, assuming I have a loan that's just Ethereum. So now my assets are worth 3,300 because they went up 10%. My loan liability stays the same. I still only have the $1,000 to pay back. And now my collateralization is at 330% just from the appreciation. I still only have $1,000 cash in hand. So I rebalanced the portfolio. So the price of Ethereum is still at 1,100. I still have the 3 Ethereum staking it, and the asset value still $300. But I pull I get an extra $100 out as a loan. So my liability's gone up by $100, and I have an extra $100 cash in hand, and that brings my collateralization ratio back to 300. So I've got $1,100 cash in hand. So now let's say Ethereum drops back down to its original price, back to $1,000. Loan assets are worth $3,000. I still have the original 3 Ethereum. My loan liability is $1,100. My collateralization's gone down to 272%. So I rebalance the portfolio, and I buy what is that, 3.3 ETH or $300 worth of Ethereum and I put that into the asset. So that brings my collateralization back up to 300%. My loan liability hasn't changed, but I used some of that cash in the hand. So now I only have $800 cash in hand because I just spent $300 to bring my collateralization back up. I bought more assets in order to. So this is the point, is like you're basically balancing your asset and your liability to maintain 300%. And as the volatility changes, and what you'll see at the end of this is I come out ahead. So while the price was up, I pulled out more cash in hand. That's not a tax event because it's a loan, and which I have to pay back. And so now, came back down to its original price. Now, let's say Ethereum dropped by 10%. So now it's $900 per Ethereum. The value of my assets has gone down, and the collateralization has gone down to 270%.
Oh, God, okay.
And so I rebalance again. So I'm rebalancing every time there's a 10% move. And so I take more of my cash in hand. I buy more Ethereum. I increase my asset. And so it brings my collateralization back up to 300%. The only real change is I have less cash in hand now. So let's say Ethereum comes back again to its original price. So we've just kind of done a sine wave, and we're right back to the starting place as far as Ethereum's concerned. So because I bought more assets when it was low, now my collateralization's up. So I rebalance again. I pull more dollars out right here. So I rebalance again. So my collateralization's back to 300%. So I have more cash in hand. My loan liability's gone up, but my assets have also gone up, over this point. And so net, I'm up 1.2%. Like my net worth has increased by 1.2%. And Ethereum has done nothing price-wise. It's just gone up and down and came back to where it started. But I have gained, 1% through this move. And time is not a factor here. This could have all happened in a day. It could have happened in a month. But just by rebalancing my loan on each 10% move, I come out ahead because essentially what I'm doing through this process is I'm selling high and I'm buying low. And once everything just sort of equals out. So this is the axioms that I'm basing this on, is like cryptocurrency is always going to be volatile. Like Bitcoin's always going to be volatile due to the nature of the 21 million and no more coins. Ethereum is in a period of negative deflation. So same rules apply. It's always going to be volatile. And so this is a way to like profit from that volatility. There's also a general, trend up. If you look at Bitcoin on a log scale over its 14-year lifespan, there's a very clear general trend up and to the right. So that's what makes me bullish over long. So if you just take those two axioms that crypto is volatile and the general trend is up and to the right, you can use it. Where this technique can really screw you, though, is if you try and do this at the top of a bull market. The time to do this is at the bottom of a bear market, because then you've got this sort of secular trend that's this headwind or this tailwind that's sort of helping you in general. And so I opened this trade like a couple months ago when prices were a lot lower, and so I've already seen like about my collateralization ratio went from like 300% to 400%. And I just sort of like worked through the math. But yeah, I mean, the point here really is that like by just adjusting, by either increasing your loan amount when the prices are high or buying more assets when the prices are low, you can just profit from the volatility of the moves here. And so this is theoretical. I'm actually trying this right now, like with one of these troves that I opened. And we'll see if the reality matches the theory, but theoretically, this is how it should work.
I'm doing this on Near and on Polygon. Like on Polygon, I'm using Aave. Pretty much the same. Yeah, the same strategy. Just I'm from time to time also returning my loan, because in reality, you loan like growing with time with some percent. it's not staying always the same. So yeah, I'm just from time to time paying it. And on near, yeah, it's just not big changes recently. So it's just staying there until near is more like expensive. But yeah, it's pretty valid strategy.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'm in, like, I tried it. I ran that through that same simulation with like 20, waiting for 20% changes, and then like not moving at every 10% change. But yeah, and so it gets really risky really fast. Like the bigger the numbers get. So I like the 10% moves.
If you over collateralize, because you're always like tempted to borrow more, because but also there's before we was talking with somebody about this one, and really the risky guys, they using their percent like a stop loss, so they're like borrowing. They decided on which price they can be liquidated. So they said, okay, if the Ethereum is below this, I don't need Ethereum anymore. So they will borrow as much as, like, if price go there, okay, they will be liquidated, but they will be borrowed this amount, and this will be like a stop loss until they will be in this trade.
I've noticed that too. And so this is one of the interesting things about Liquidity and Yeti, is that when a trove gets liquidated, it always liquidates the worst trove first. Like the worst trove first always gets liquidated first. And so I've noticed like people do that. Like they almost intentionally get liquidated. They just ratchet up the leverage as high as they can, and they figure that if they get liquidated, like whatever, it's not a huge loss. It's like a stop loss. It operates exactly like a stop loss. And so in events like what happened this weekend, people who stake their YUSD in the stability pool make just a ton of money, because a whole bunch of troves get liquidated at once, and like that stability pool basically gets drained, and so everybody that's in it like gets any profit that was made from those liquidations, and there's always a little bit of profit, by intent, by design. And so it's pretty interesting, all the different trades and techniques that are. I just think like these over collateralized loans like this is like, I'm just starting to wrap my head around this, and I know enough to know that I don't understand all the implications and possibilities, but it just seems so powerful. The fact that like there's nobody but you and the contract, and the government doesn't know what you're doing.
Right, and there's not a taxable event. I think that's probably one of the big things that is really, like, if you watch some of these YouTube videos, they're talking about this is how wealthy people do it, right? They put something out, they pull money out via a loan, because that's not taxable. They pay that, that's usually done in the traditional banking system, which doesn't work supremely well. Here, you could even automate it, right? I mean, you could actually do this, and it could be automated, and you could make money on each of the ups and downs, and be able to use that money if you needed to, that you pulled out. So I feel like these are like new ways of considering that whole concept.
Yeah, they're great, but what I found was that they don't work very well on my level of commitment. Like the money that I'm putting there, it just does not work. Just all of this selling and stuff, it's give me like $1, for example, profit. So finally I was like, okay, why have done all of these things just for $1?
Yeah,
so
that's why I'm trying it right now with like
specific amount of money in order this to start making sense.
Right. I think that's the thing is, like, there's probably two main things. One of them, if you actually get liquidated, it sucks, right? So that's one that is clearly a risk. If crypto does tank that bad. The other is if every time you do it, you lose 1%, or depending on how much,
just through transaction fees. Like this is why it wouldn't work on Ethereum.
And loan costs, right? I mean, if there's a fee for the loan cost, then that's the other part. Other than that, I feel like it's completely reasonable and probably worthwhile, especially automating it. But then you get this arbitrage where everyone's doing it, so now it gets.
But the thing is the effect of this is that it reduces the volatility, and that helps everybody.
Right.
That's the net. That's ultimately where this profit is coming from, is from misallocations in the marketplace.
Absolutely. Right. It's inefficient. So you're just making it more efficient, which makes the benefits a long term.
Yeah, exactly. And so this, and also because it's like, I really don't know what I'm doing, and this is all theoretical. Like, that's why I'm using like 300% collateralization and like the absolute minimum amount to open a trove. And
it's also a nice move to have several different collaterals, like not using just AVAX. Like I was using before, like BTC, ETH, and Matic. And now it's just Matic, I think, and Ethereum. But still, if you have several of them, when some of them going up and down, it does not affect your like percent so much.
Well, I recommend too, Chris, is you just automate it, just write some script and automate it and just let it run. And nothing could go wrong. Nothing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, nothing could possibly go wrong. Yeah, and you know what you said there about the multi-collateral thing, like I know, like on the one hand, if you could have a portfolio, like that's one of the things I like about Yeti is I have Ethereum and Avalanche and Bitcoin in my trove, and there's lots of other things I could put in there in as assets. And so having a portfolio of assets like reduces the volatility, but I could see how a person might just want Bitcoin or even a more volatile asset. Because you're actually like, the volatility here is how you make money. Like, you want volatility. So you may even want to go out and do this on the most volatile asset you can find that you can use as an asset.
Yeah, but it's good to have volatile and not so much volatile like asset. So you can make your profits on this is fluctuating, but it's good to have some nice basic stuff that is keeping you alive during this turbulence time. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm just jazzed by the possibilities here. Like I just feel like I've been sleeping on this. Like, you know, Yeti's only a year old, so I don't feel that bad. But I think that as more people discover this, like, just think of all the meme stocks and how Robinhood has just completely changed the investing landscape. Like I think that this idea is like right up there with Robinhood.
No, this Avalanche is very how to say, they have a lot of very interesting tools. If you take a look, for example, on Banky something, it's, for example, you can stake something like some collateral, and they will give you the same amount of liquid tokens, which you can use in another services. Because the usual staking, when you put, like, for example, something for collateral, you cannot use it anymore. That's why the people hesitate. But with the liquid staking, you will get some some tokens equal to your stake token, and you can use it again in other services. Like, for example, I don't know, farming, something.
Yeah, see, you're way ahead of me on that one. I just wrapped my head around. I'm all proud because I just figured that out. Like, and that's like a year or two old. And like, this whole liquid staking thing, like, I've heard about it, but I can't wrap my head around it yet.
Yeah,
I gotta wrap my head around what you're doing here some more. You know, I've never been a trader. I've always gotten washed out, but you know, what you're doing sounds viable. So I'd have to look into it some more.
Well, that's where I'm at, is like, this almost sounds too good to be true. So that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. And I'm like taking baby steps, because I'm like, I don't know. There's got to be something I don't understand about this. It sounds too good to be true.
Well, I think the biggest thing is you already understand where the money's coming from. You know, it's not free, right? So if it's a free thing, then it's Ponzi. So it's not that. You're actually pulling it from the ups and downs and the inefficiency in the market. And as long as you understand that and you're able to capture that, I think it's pretty clear that you've found a good model. It's just, it's kind of like mining in the beginning. You know, the difficulty is going to be getting worse and worse and worse for you. So you're making money now. It might be less over time.
It's like always problems coming from over leveraging. If you're doing like this 300%, it's pretty safe, I think. when you are playing with these stop losses and everything, then it starts to become like very
Yeah.
shady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't lose everything.
Yeah,
Just
Right.
don't lose everything.
Well, and that's the key with these troves is like the best time to open them is at the bottom of a bear market. The worst time to open them is at the top of a bull market.
Good thing you call that so well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if we have another leg down, I'm gonna open another trove, and I'm gonna buy like crazy. But I do kind of feel that we're in the bottom of the bear market as far as cryptos go. But I could be wrong, and I'm prepared to invest more if I am wrong. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, it's been an hour and a half. Yeah, I like to keep them an hour, but I just really wanted to share that with you guys. Just
That's cool.
see if it comes back to haunt me, or if I actually did, discovered something that's super awesome.
I'll look into it. And, I was checking out your CoinJoin React code. I mean, it looks good using the class stuff. I wouldn't mess with it if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
some things you could do, and I'll shoot you a message when I look at it more. But that would take rewriting stuff and functional components, and you got the class components going pretty well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I got the vast majority of the class components refactored out. There's still a few, and yeah, eventually I do want to get them all out of there. And it's mostly, I mean, the motivation there is just that this web, I'm reusing that web wallet code in like half a dozen projects now, and I can see how I'll be using it for other things in the future. It's kind of my go-to. So I just want that base template to be in as good of a place as possible.
Yeah, when I get some chance, hopefully this week or next, I'll just download it and I'll write some notes or maybe make some tweets and do a branch off it. And
just do a branch and push a branch, and we can do a PR, and that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. So there's just little things like use memo would work for a lot of stuff that you're pulling in once, and then you never want it to update, or you only want it to update at specific times. So like any of those instances where you're pulling in the wallet information, sticking it in a use memo instead of sticking into state. That way you don't risk erasing it if you if there's a bug or you write it wrong, because use memo it basically says to React, don't re-render this unless I tell you with a very specific instruction.
Oh, cool.
There. So
cool. I didn't even know about that hook.
Yep. It's a good
another thing I want to do, another like major refactor I'd like to do to this web wallet is to make it more of a progressive web app, where that loading screen where it's like loading minimal SLP wallet, getting the balance, like most of that data could be stored in local storage, and it could just pull it up right away and then update it in the background so the user's not waiting for it.
Yeah.
That would be a huge UX improvement.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks for making the time. Great meeting.
All right.
Really appreciate your input.